Welcome back to the Retro Sports Gamer channel, and this is another Retro Sports Gaming Monthly closing out 2018 on the very last day that we can do one of these. It is New Year's Eve, and it is December, and I got some topics for you. Right now, I'm going solo. We could have someone joining in a little bit, and I'll be able to invite them if they become available, but right now it's just me. I have some topics to talk about. Well, at the very end, I could talk about some of the things going on with the channel. Where's the commish in the chat? Deontay says the commish. He's MIA at the moment. He definitely wants to come on again. It's just he's got a big family and he probably has some commitments going. So one of the first things that one of the topics that I had is top live Tecmo tournament. I played in a lot of Tecmo Super Bowl tournaments this last year among some other sports games, but this one I'm limiting to Tecmo Super Bowl. Let me start by saying every tournament I played in this year I had a great time at. Playing in these tournaments and people throwing them for a game that came out in 1991 is something special. And it's awesome that there's a bunch of guys willing to, go through everything it takes to throw tournaments for a game that a lot of people love and grew up with. So I am definitely thankful for that, and it allowed me to play in a lot of tournaments this year. Yep, I'm rocking the Sox cap, believe it or not. It's the off season, so it feels pretty good right now. We'll see if they do anything next year, but I'm not counting on it. So top live Tecmo tournament for me personally, I thought about this, and I'm not including my own tournaments because it's really hard to judge when you're running the tournament. But the top tournament for me was Tupa Bowl in Columbus. Reason I chose Tupa Bowl is for a few reasons. One, my friend Joe, Casual Gamer Joe, as we've called him on the channel before, took the trip with me, even though he did not play in the tournament. I didn't hang out with him or see him the whole year, and he was able to take that trip with me to Columbus because he lives overseas now. So that started off the weekend good, hanging out with my friend Joe. But at Tupa Bowl, Kevin Cabarello is the guy who runs that tournament. It's in Columbus, Ohio. I believe it was at Granddad's Pizza, which I think he works at one of them, not the one the tournament was at. But I played a lot of unique players there. I met a lot of new people. Some of the Tecmo tournaments that I've been to in the Midwest, it's been more common faces, whereas that one, besides for, Kevin, Mort, and Lou, and then Troy being there with the TGFN stream, was a lot of new guys that I haven't met or played before. So it was nice to see some new faces enthused for Tecmo Super Bowl. The other thing that's cool about that tournament is Woodshed and Jim Sox put on a performance before you start the tournament. Jim Sox plays the guitar and Woodshed sings, and they come up with a Tecmo lyrics, and they sing a live performance right before the tournament starts. So that is fun. Other tournaments have things like this. Of course, Tecmo Madison is famous for Josh Hausbauer reading a quote from the LT Book of Quotes or Bible or whatever it's called. I know some of the tournaments Troy has done, he sings the national anthem. So the other tournaments have their thing too. I just think it's cool to have like a live musical performance at the beginning of the tournament. Other things about Tupa Bowl, I did like the format. Kevin kind of changed it on the fly, where you ended up playing harder opponents in round robin. But the way it was set up, there was like an in-between round where basically it was like you either beat this guy and you're playing in the gold bracket, or you don't and you're playing in the consolation bracket. So everybody had a chance still to play in the gold bracket, even if they didn't do well in their pool play. Like Kevin himself went 0-4 in pool play, but then ended up doing phenomenally in the double elimination tournament. I think he got third or fourth. What's up, Troy? How's it going? So I like the format there. Got in a ton of games. I believe I got 9 games in. It was 5-4. Was 8th place at that tournament. Also, the thing about Tuba Bowl is the prizes are, it probably gives, for that size of tournament, it gives the most people an opportunity to place and win something. I believe not 9 people got paid out cash prizes. First was $400, which is pretty high for most of these Tecmo Super Bowl tournaments. And the consolation winner even got a trophy and $75. First place was more at that tournament. He got a trophy as well. But even through 8th place, like I was in the top 8. I think I got $25, which is my entry fee back. So it's very generous as far as the prizes as well. So that was my top Tecmo tournament of the year. Like I said, there was many other great tournaments that I went to, and they all have their appeal. But for me, that was the top one for this year. And I will have a bucket list going into the next year, hopefully that I can make some of those tournaments. So it looks like the guest will not be joining us. So it's just going to be me doing this one today. So let's go move on to the next topic. Emerging Tecmo star. I didn't really think much about my opinion on this, but is there emerging Tecmo star? And how can you become that? A lot of people would say that you have to do well at Tecmo Madison to become a Tecmo emerging star, and that may be true. A lot of guys have become well known because of their performance at that tournament. There's a lot of people that go to that tournament with high hopes, and the reality sets in that they might need a little bit more practice in Tecmo Super Bowl. But one guy that I can think of that was at a tournament that I went to that had a amazing performance was Aaron Toner. I don't think we've seen anything like that since at Tecmo Madison. I may be wrong. But, you know, there's tons of other tournaments to play in that I think would shed Jordan winning Tecmo Cleveland was huge because that was the first tournament he won. And that's right up there as second, third biggest tournament, Tecmo tournament in the country all year long. So that's a huge win. I would say he's one of definitely the emerging stars. I look forward to see him play in more tournaments. I think I've only seen him play in Ohio, but I'd like to see him branch out more and play in some other tournaments. Also, you know, on this channel, you see Green Magic a lot. He's won a couple NBA Jam TE tournaments on Sega Genesis. But he's also done a few things late in the year in Tecmo Super Bowl that I didn't know he was capable of. In the Tecmo Players Championship, he didn't do that well. I think he was maybe 3-8, something like that. But in the qualifier for that tournament, to have no entry fee, he beat Tecmo Bo best out of 3 in the finals. And Tecmo Bo is one of the top players out there and definitely top in Chicago, one of the top players. So him beating him in that, and then at the Equalizer 2 tournament, which I'll talk a little bit about, he won the tournament, and one of the opponents he beat was Tecmo Bo. So I would say Green Magic is up there as a Tecmo Super Bowl emerging star. The East Coast guys, I wish I knew a little bit more about the players that play at their tournament. I think the guys that I see commonly that place in those tournaments are I would already consider them Tecmo stars. Like Matt DeGeorge is one of the guys I always see at the top. Arcanim, Tadeos, Bad Moon Rising. But these guys, a lot of them have been playing for a long time already, and they're pretty much expected in those tournaments to be at the top, and they pretty much are. So do those guys have to come to a different tournament in the Midwest to prove themselves? I don't necessarily think so. It would be nice to see them, but it's, you know, it's a lot of travel for everyone, and they got a good, strong community over there in the Northeast. One of the guys that I think from Chicago will be someone to be dealt with is DPS. DPS I've watched get a lot better at Tecmo Super Bowl over this past year, and he's played a lot now because we're playing every Monday nights at D-Men Tap. What's up, Adam? How's it going in the chat? But he's gotten a lot better, and he did very well at a couple tournaments at the end of the year. I think the hardcore one that Troy threw, the full Nelson, he was fourth, even though his record was like 8-2. And I think he was top 4 at Tecmo Milwaukee that Mort threw. So I look forward to him, you know, winning a tournament in this next year. The West Coast guys, they got their own thing going on. Camp, Coach Huna, however you want to say it, Camp Huna, he's got a few nicknames. They threw a tournament yesterday. They were streaming it. I think they had about 7 players, but they did a draft and they played a league all day long. I didn't get an update on who won the tournament, but I know he likes to post the videos after to kind of show who wins. So out of those guys, I mean, it looks like Camp's won their leagues a couple times. So I would like to see him, like to play versus him at some point in this year, wherever it may be. I don't know if he has any plans to come to the Midwest, but his play, to me, he looks like a big time player over there in on the West Coast. Any tournament down south? Adam's asking. There are tournaments down south. Texas has a tournament or two. I'm thinking there might have been one in Houston. Retro World Series has done some down there. If you want to stay updated on the tournaments in the South, definitely techmobile.org, techmoworld.com are two of the places you can go. And then just keep your eye out on Facebook because random stuff will pop up. So there's some tournaments down south if you're interested in playing. But I would say the South doesn't have as much of established community that I know of. I think Texas does, but they don't advertise it as much. Yes, Matt, this is a big, sexy solo podcast. So, yeah, those are some emerging stars. And obviously I gave a couple of Chicago guys I played with some love there. But there's a lot of good players out there. One of the things that I'm trying to do with the website is get some tournament organizers to want to have their stats on there so we could keep track on like who's actually doing the best, placing top 4, winning tournaments, so we could keep track of that. Let's move on to the next topic. And this is one that would have been more for some of the guests that I might have had on. Top online Tecmo leagues and which have the most players. Now, I'm not the guy to answer to this. I know HSTL is probably the biggest, and it has a waiting list to get into the league. It's probably the only one that I follow the TTL as well, the one Darth Rockman throws. I like when he has the championship streams because he does a good broadcast. He usually does he green screens and puts himself in the stadium. So yeah, I like what he does with that for sure. But I don't know which one's the biggest, honestly. But these guys do some excellent work in the Tecmo online leagues. just like the presentations, the websites, the stats they put out there, I could see how it hooks Tecmo players in, and that's what they're locked into. Personally, I would love to play in one of the leagues. I just know with the scheduling it requires and the pace of the leagues that I wouldn't be able to do it. So I don't try it. I like playing games online, but with the live stuff we got going on, it's not going to be possible. But you know, some of these leagues are definitely worth following, even if you're not playing in them. Like I know the HSTL has a draft, a pre-draft like talk with Matt DeGeorge and Hoff Nasty. So they're worth following. I could put links in the description of this video, but there's a lot of great things going on in online Tecmo that definitely deserve some attention. And Troy's saying in the chat, he also does GB Land every spring. So it looks like he's looking to do another tournament. He's done one the last 2 years. So that's a fun tournament. I know one of the big guys that produces a lot of good content on online Tecmo is War Machine. I don't know much about him. I don't think I've ever talked to him, but whenever he posts something and there's a presentation about it or a promotion, it's some good stuff. So he has a Twitch channel. Just look up War Machine on Twitch. He broadcasts the playoffs, I think, for like the Tecmo 2K. So there's actually a league that it's called Tecmo 2K that has modern rosters. They even updated the ROM, so the field goals are moved back to the 30-yard line. You have the 2-point conversions. So it's pretty incredible what they've done with the game to modernize it. So that's another league worth following for sure. Next topic is sports games I would like to see a tournament scene for. And there's a few of these games that I would like to see a tournament for. One of them, through our quest to find the best version of NBA Jam or NBA Jam TE, it's really hard. They all have their little nuances and quirks so far that we found. I think the best version of NBA Jam is one of the arcade versions, either NBA Jam TE arcade version or the original NBA Jam. I would love to see a tournament on the arcade cabinets. Adam's in the chat saying NBA Jam. Matt's saying NBA Showtime. I know there was supposed to be a tournament that popped up from Denver. They rescheduled the tournament, and then we never heard about it again. I think that was supposed to be on arcade cabinets. I would love to see an NBA Jam tournament at a large scale on arcade cabinets. It would be a harder thing to pull off because these big old arcade cabinets are heavy. So you'd have to get a lot of NBA Jam arcade cabinets in one area. But I think maybe even an area like Chicago could pull that off with all the beercades, because all of them pretty much have at least one version of NBA Jam. But that's one thing that I would love to see in the future. NBA Showtime, Matt says, yes, I think NBA Showtime on the Dreamcast is underrated, but I don't know what the following for it exactly is. But I think the monthly tournament that we had in NBA Showtime definitely showed that it's a great tournament game, and all the games were close. So Adam's asking NCAA football. That's not one that I thought of, but I think there would be a following for it. I'm not sure exactly which one to choose. I hear 06 is the best one. Me, personally, I would lean towards 03, so just be figuring out which one is the best. Yeah, Dreamcast isn't heavy, and Showtime, it's pretty much arcade perfect. That's a good point. And then Troy brings up in the chat the one of the other games of the three I wanted to talk about is Blitz. NFL Blitz. I think this game does have some legs for an arcade or a tournament. NFL Blitz, it does take skill to be good at it, for sure. The players in game don't have as much depth as some of these other games that are played in tournaments, though. It's really hard to notice a difference from player to player if they're actually faster, slower, hit harder, can intercept the ball better, catch better. Because like this NFL Blitz 2000, I always use the Bears. They're rated horribly in the game, but I like their playbook, and I'm able to smoke people with them. So I don't think that's a big of a factor in that game, which could be a good thing because players don't really have to prepare as far as who to use, what lineups. And the game's really fun to watch. So, you know, if someone's streaming a NFL Blitz tournament of 32 players or something like that, that's going to be a fun tournament to watch. You don't need to know a ton going in. If you have skill playing the game, I think you could do well in the tournament. And that leaves me with the third game I wanted to talk about. And I'm seeing now that this game has some legs for sure. And it has a following, is ESPN NFL 2K5. That's a game that I've been playing a season through. Now, admittedly, when the game came out, of course I bought it. It was only $20 at the time when it launched, but I didn't dedicate enough time to it. I was playing Madden 2005 at the time, and I've played Madden since 2001, so I really didn't give it the attention it deserves. That's why I'm playing through it now, but there's a lot of fans of the game. Now, one thing I've noticed is the games that came out after online was a thing, a lot of those players look to keep those games alive online. They're not maybe as interested in having a live tournament happen, but there's no reason it can't happen. You know, one of the sports forums called Operation Sports, that one focuses more on modern gaming, but they also talk a little bit about ESPN NFL 2K5. And really, I don't think the presentation has been completely matched since, but it's also a really good football game, and it has, of course, all the NFL players in it. I would love to see a tournament of ESPN NFL 2K5, and it would not be expensive to throw. The games are cheap. The Xboxes or PS2s, they're not that much. It's definitely a tournament that could happen, and I would like to see it happen. Now, you have to dedicate a little bit more time to that tournament because the games take longer than, say, a game of Tecmo Super Bowl or NFL Blitz, NBA Jam, NHL 94, even RBI Baseball. These are all finished under 25 minutes. ESPN NFL 2K5, even at 4-minute quarters, would probably at least take 45 minutes. If you play 5 minutes, an hour or over an hour. So that's one of the games that I would definitely like to see. Troy also says in the chat, Baseball Stars Neo Geo, not a bad suggestion. Adam's saying College Slam. College Slam is very similar to NBA Jam. Acclaim basically ripped off all of the knowledge that they took from Midway and made that game. It actually is a great game, but I have heard recently, and I think it was on Twitter somewhere, that Mark Turmel hated College Slam because there was no connection to Midway, but all of the porting that they did for Midway to put NBA Jam on consoles, they used that to create College Slam. And because of that, College Slam's a really good game. But there are differences between versions, so I don't know which one you would choose. And the players are a little weird on there because even if guys were on the team, like they're not the right skin tone colors, they're not the right size. And I've never seen so many bald college students in my life, like balding. So that's another thing that wouldn't necessarily prevent anyone from throwing a tournament. But boom, bear down, says Mega Dan. How's it going, Mega Dan? Yes, the Bears are in the playoffs, 12-4. They'll be playing the Eagles on Sunday. I think they should be the favorite in that one, but we'll see how it goes. The Bears haven't been there in a while. College Slam Tournament and March Madness. I think that's a good one for us to do as a monthly tournament at Demon Tap in Chicago. I think we thought about it last year, but it just came together a little late and we weren't able to do it. Is AI on College Slam? I think so. Someday when I come over, we were playing that machine behind you. Yes, for sure. The basement's set up for retro gaming. I mean, I got 3 CRTs set up down here, and I got a bunch more in the garage that couldn't be put down here. So I have had a tournament or 2 in the basement, worked out well. We'll get that going eventually in the future, but for right now, we're doing them at Demon Tap in Chicago. And D-Dub's in the chat saying, yeah, if Nate Suffield starts, I guess he's saying, the Bears will win. If Foles, then Eagles will win. I don't know. That's a bold statement because Foles, he's had some magnificent performances and seasons, but he's a little bit iffy. And I think he might struggle with the Bears' pass rush. So, yeah, and then I wanted to report on some Tecmo tournaments that happened in December. The first one was December 1st, Connecticut Tecmo. This is a tournament the organizer's Arcanum, and he's been throwing this tournament a long time. First place was Rantoro. Second place, Tadeos. Turbo was third place. He's another guy I see winning in the top 4 in a lot of tournaments, so I would consider him definitely a Tecmo rising star. And then Matt DeGeorge. They didn't stream this event. I know they got a few of the games on YouTube after the fact on Tadeos's YouTube channel. So they at least have like the finals up there. And Megadan in the chat saying, I disagree. I think the Bears will win this one. I think they should. I mean, the Eagles kind of just sputtered into the playoffs, but they did go on a little winning streak to make it happen. I've seen Alshon Jeffrey making a lot of big catches for them during the stretch, so it's going to be a good game. I wouldn't be too overconfident in the Bears. You know, we haven't been there in so long, but I would say they're definitely the favorite to win it. All right, the other tournament to report on was the Equalizer 2, and that was the tournament that we had here in Berwyn, Illinois. I threw that tournament. It was the second time we did it. Like Dan saying he's still worried about the Rams. Well, the Bears took care of the Rams once already, so there's no reason they can't do that again. But if their offense is rolling, then yeah, it could be a struggle for them. But the Equalizer 2, we had 15 players. So we're down 5 from the previous year. And Connecticut Tecmo was, I think, 37 players. So they were down over 10 at least, because I think they had over 50 players last time. But yeah, we had 15 players. We added a game to it this time. So group play, everybody had 4 games. NBA 2K on Dreamcast. Yeah, that would be a good one. I like NBA 2K on Dreamcast. I don't know what the following of it is, but for a tournament, but it's definitely a good game to still play today. Equalizer 2. So yeah, everyone had 4 games. I'll give my personal tournament report because they really didn't recap the tournament yet, but I was in Group 1 with Mort, Tecmo Bow, Green Magic, and DPS. The first game I played Green Magic. It was a great game. We went to overtime. He forced me in one bad throw on a called play, and the Steelers picked it off. He kicked a field goal, won the game. That was a really good game. Besides for the double covered diving catch that he got on the first drive of the game, it was a well-played game. That was the only unexpected thing that happened there. The game versus Mort, he was the Bears. I was the Eagles. He played good defense, only scored 17 points, but he had 28 and One of them was the end of the half JJ to Neil Anderson, and then he had another JJ to Neil Anderson for a touchdown. Whenever the Bears are doing that, it's tough to beat them in Tecmo Super Bowl because they're a horrible passing team. But I've played more with the Bears, and he just has a feel for their jumping catch game. And when they're doing that, I can't beat them, because to me, those throws are, you're really risking it, but your end result is the best thing you could do in a football game, is a touchdown. Whereas, you're throwing up again, even against the Eagles secondary, you think it should be an interception, and it's not. So he beat me pretty easily in that one. His offense was rolling. I played Tecmo Bo. I have a terrible record versus Tecmo Bo, but in this game, it was actually one of the better games I played versus him. Looking back at the footage, didn't make very many misplays. He had an end of the half JJ, which hurt. I definitely had one good luck play in this game where I had a scoop and score for a touchdown before that happened, but he was able to tie it up on the very next play. I think what was more frustrating is his other 3 touchdowns were on Barry Sanders runs. I was the Buccaneers. He was the Lions. And basically there was, out of 2 of the 3 touchdowns, I had the guy locked up in a grapple, and my drone hit the grapple, and usually most of the time that's a tackle and they just bounce right off. So 2 of the touchdowns were like that. So they weren't bad defense. It just, the way the game mechanics work, it didn't work out for me. And then another one, he just made a good move. He got me in a solo grappling situation and threw me off, which I lose every tap to him. So that was a tough one looking at that, because that was an opportunity I had, but it was a well-played game. I lost 28-21. My last game was versus DPS. DPS is one of the worst tournaments that he's played, but he also was up against the best players. I was able to win easily with the Eagles. I forgot who he was, to be honest. But yeah, that one was pretty easy for me. Moved on to the draft. Since we only had 15 players, everyone got a pretty good team. I think the worst team was the Jets. My brother picked them, but everyone else had a team in Tier 3 or Tier 2. So it worked out well as far as that's considered. In the first round, I ended up playing more. The whole group 1 was on one side of the bracket. So that's part of the equalizer. We don't know, because of the lottery, we don't know where the seeds are going to end up. And it just so happened that the top 5 players were on the one side of the bracket, and then, it was all group 2 and 3 on the other side. I'm just thinking about some of the guys who had good performances in the tournament. Group 2 was really balanced. I think it was a bunch of 2 and 2s. Maybe Kyle Daniels was 3 and 1. I don't remember, but Group 3 had Pistol Pete, which it was his second live tournament, and he was 4 and 0. So that was a good performance by him. Also, Joe Mitchell has been playing in the D-Men Tap Tecmo League, was 3 and 1. My brother, he underperformed. He went 0-4, just like DPS did. And I'm trying to think. We had a guy come from Indiana, Bob. He played really well. He went 2 and 2 in group play. So that's always a good surprise when someone new comes to your tournament and they could actually play. Bob could definitely play, and he got a big time tournament. Some big time wins. Kyle's saying I was 3 and 1, but I choked in the playoffs. Yes. So Kyle, I think we had him rated as the top player in that group, and he took care of business. And it looks like, in the playoffs, I think he lost to DKS, if I remember. And DKS had one of the most impressive performances of the tournament, because he drafted the Broncos, and the Broncos are on the lower end of who you could draft in the tournament. We cut out the Tier 1 teams, the 49ers, the Oilers, the Bills, and the Giants. And he took care of business with the Broncos and made it to the finals on the one half side of the bracket. DKS is a really good player. He has an interesting play style. He will blitz in quite a bit, which can catch you off guard. But watching him play in some of the streamed games, he's definitely a top competitor. He's someone to look out for in these tournaments moving forward. So the rest of the tournament, basically what happened is Green Magic won the tournament. His biggest win was against Tecmo Bo. They both had the same teams as last year, Eagles and Raiders. And Tecmo Bo was pretty much in control of the game, but he had a rough first quarter or fourth quarter. He went for it on 4th and 2 in the red zone, and Green Magic stopped it. He still had to march down the field quite a bit to tie the game, which he did. He forced overtime. He got the ball in overtime, and he's able to kick a field goal, I believe, and win the game. So that was the biggest, probably the biggest game of the entire tournament, was that game right there. So then Green Magic moved on. He played DKS. And DKS, even though his team was outmatched, Broncos versus Eagles, he just had terrible luck in the game. He had a couple really bad fumbles. He was making some moves with Bobby Humphrey, but he just couldn't overcome the luck that he had. And Joseph was able to win easily. I think it was 24-7. But luck wasn't on his side, and it was Green Magic's time to win. He won the tournament, and he came out of Group 1. So he was the first Group 1 winner of the equalizer out of the 2 times that we did it. So it was a great tournament. We had a good time. Yeah, so, you know, we'll talk about the tournament a little bit later in one of these other topics that I have. And what I think of the turnout. And that is the next topic. Abundance of Tecmo tournaments. This was brought up like a year and a half ago by a regulator. And a lot of people said, no, there's not an abundance. But I could say from an organizer's perspective, there probably is an abundance. Now, it's not a bad problem to have because it gives people more opportunities to play in these tournaments. But what you have is a bunch of guys staying local to play in tournaments. So tournament organizers probably aren't doing as good as they would like as far as producing people to play in their tournament. So that's why the equalizer, 15 players, pretty disappointed in that, to be honest with you. The 2 main things to try to attract with that format is, 1, players who want to play Tecmo Madison style rules for in-game, no lurching, no wide receiver at running back. And the second, for guys who've been playing these tournaments a long time that haven't had success. Well, if I look at the list of players that played in the tournament, I don't really think it attracted either of those. The guys that may have come, you know, guys who are long-term players in Wisconsin, they didn't make the trip. The guys who like to play the Madison in-game rules, you know, no one besides the Chicago guys really made it. I mean, we had a couple players from Wisconsin, Hank the Tank and DKS, and then one guy from Indiana, Bob. So, you know, 15 players. I've almost had that much at the Christmas Eve Tecmo Super Bowl tournament we throw. We've had 14 players play at that. So for putting out a tournament, you know, not really advertising, but putting on a Tecmo Super Bowl board and only have 15 players, that is a little bit rough. And looking at some of the other turnouts of some of these tournaments, I would say their numbers are down a little bit. But I really think it's not lack of interest. It's just, you know, there's only so many tournaments you could play in every year. A lot of people have families, other obligations, and, you know, you have to choose which tournaments you're going to play in. So do I think there is an abundance? I do think so. And I think it's tougher for the organizers to continue to keep their tournament going if they keep seeing a decrease in numbers when they would like to grow the tournament. So we'll see what happens moving on to this year. But I think naturally what happens in these situations is it's recognized by some people that there is an abundance. So some of the guys just don't throw the tournament anymore. And then you have other tournaments that, get people to play at theirs because the tournament that they used to play in is not there. Now, in Chicago, we're in a unique situation because we really haven't had much of anything for years. And then this last year, we had like 3 Tecmo Super Bowl tournaments. So you can't really expect guys to keep coming to a place where there was no tournaments before to travel. I do think the future of the Chicago area for a Tecmo Super Bowl is Mort's Tecmo Players Championship. That's really a great idea by Mort overall. And it's a high buy-in tournament for a game that you grew up playing, that you play seriously now. So why not? It provides something unique, more games, more money on the line. I think that is, definitely the tournament in the future in Chicago. And then we'll see what other events we're able to throw. I definitely want to keep the Tecmo Super Bowl hardcore alive because that to me is something I'm passionate about. Just playing the game like it is created and seeing who's the best player is. Because there's not really any other tournaments out there doing it like that. I know Troy threw the full Nelson hardcore, which was great. So it gave us a chance to play another tournament like that. But that's one I definitely like to keep alive moving forward. But also, I think my focus is to see what other market there is for some of these other sports games and live tournaments, because I don't just like to play one game, even though it's my favorite game. There are other tournaments. Adam's in the chat asking any NHL 94 tournament. Well, there wasn't recently, but there's one coming up in February. That's Troy's tournament. I think it's February 23rd. I think it's called Barry Melrose Place or something like that. So that was a tournament last year. I think he had over 30 players. So that one's in Wisconsin. That's one guys from the Midwest and other parts of the country could travel to. They don't have as many tournaments per year as Tecmo Super Bowl tournaments. So they don't have that issue where, maybe there's an abundance. There's only a few guys that are actually throwing the tournaments. You got a couple in the Northeast, and then you got the big tournament, King of 94, which is a traveling tournament, which is going to be in New York for their next tournament. And then you have, Troy's tournament, and then maybe a few others that I don't know about. Retro sports video games ain't never been so big. Would you agree? As far as retro is considered, they're not that big. If you go in retro sports games or retro gaming stores these days, they're filled with retro sports games that a lot of other gamers talk down upon. For me, it's great. I go in there. I think the last time I went to a retro game store, there's one not too far from me. I got a bunch of PlayStation games for 99 cents, like NBA Live 2000, 2001. I think I got NCAA 06 on PS2 for $1. So, it's just amazing how many games you could get for cheap as far as retro sports. Now, what do I think causes that? Well, I don't know necessarily, but it seems to me like the guys who love retro gaming, they're based on characters like Link, Mario, Sonic, the Final Fantasy characters. They really get invested in those characters. And since they can keep moving forward because they're fictional characters and they can keep creating games that are the exact same character, you get people who really just get into those games and looking into the past of those games. Whereas sports games, the players change year to year. And I think the guys who grew up playing those sports games, maybe they're into different things in business raising their family. I don't know, but it's not necessarily a thing that they hold so strongly to their chest that they have to feel like they have to stay involved in it. Yeah, Barry Melrose Place tournament sounds like a good time. Hopefully it is. Yeah, Donkey Kong, Adam, that's a game that got more popularized after the King of Kong documentary. The same kind of thing happened for Tecmo Super Bowl after the NFL Films mini documentary that ran on ESPN2. It saw definitely an increase in interest after that ran. So that kind of stuff, whenever these mainstream conglomerates put stuff out there, it really helps out and makes a boost. Is LJC more of an RPG guy? Yes. Well, I don't know RPG. He's not as much of a sports gamer. Let's be honest. He does play sports games, but it's more like the ones that are based off the fictional characters, like Mario Baseball, Backyard Baseball, stuff like that. Tony Hawk Pro Skater. What do I think of that? Tony Hawk Pro Skater. I never got into it. I would say it is kind of like a sports game. But there's definitely a lot of button combinations that you have to learn to be good at that game, and that's just not my type of game. All right, let's see. What else do we have? Oh, Retro Sports League Championship. So that's coming up January 5th. Right now we have 14 players playing in it. The idea of the Retro Sports League Championship is we find out who the best retro sports gamer is. Now, right now, it's still small. Last year, we did it out of my basement. This year, we're doing it in D-Men Tap in Chicago. The prize last year was small. I just threw $100 of my own money on the line. This time, I'm throwing $300 of my own money on the line. And Troy GB Land is producing the second place prize of $100. Pretty much anyone who follows this community could play in it if they want to. I invited the guys who've played at the Chicago tournaments, but the invitation's been open since posting the event to anybody that wants to play in it. 14 players. I think there's a lot of retro sports gaming players that are fixated on one game or maybe two games, and they're a little bit intimidated that they're going to be poor at some of the other games that you would play. So the 4 games you play: RBI Baseball, Nintendo, Tecmo Super Bowl, Nintendo, NBA Jam TE, Sega Genesis, and NHL 94 on Sega Genesis. So, you know, it's hard to come in with skills at all 4 of those games. I know a bunch of guys who are good at least 2 of them. I would say a lot of the guys we play with in Chicago are good at 3 of them, and that's how most of the people coming into the tournament are. So I would say if you're at least good at 2, depending on who you end up playing in the triple elimination tournament, you can move on far. Like, you know, Angry J, the top NHL 94 players playing in the tournament, we've seen him play in a Tecmo tournament. He started at 3-0, and he ended up giving some good games to some other better players. So we know he, like, even though he's the best at one game, he could still play with top line players in another game. What he could do in the other ones, we don't know, but we'll find out. So I'm excited to see how that tournament goes. This is something that I would like to keep doing on this channel annually is throw this tournament. It's open to anyone who wants to play in the Retro Sports League. The way we can interact with people to play in the Retro Sports League is through the Nintendo Switch. I know I have not brought it to D-Men Tap when we play, but we want people to challenge us in the chat, and we'll have the Switch available, and we'll count those towards our standings, put it on retrosportsgamer.net, and then that will qualify you for a chance to play in the tournament. Now, right now, I told you what the prizes are. I would like to grow that. Hopefully, with the success of the YouTube channel, I don't have to throw my own money into it, and it's a self-sustaining thing that, you know, we could do for people who follow the channel, and, you know, it could be free entry to the people who are in the Retro Sports League. That's the whole idea. So we're going to go with it this time, see how it goes, but I think we can continue to grow it and get people interested in these games. And I don't think we're locked into those 4 games. We could add more sports. We can change the games up a little bit. But I think for right now, those are the 4 games that I see tournaments happening the most for live in retro sports games. So that's what they're going to be right now. And then, you know, after this one, we'll see what we put in there for next year. So yeah, that's January 5th. We'll be streaming on this channel, also the Twitch channel, and I'm hoping that there will be 1 or 2 other stream-capable people there to stream the other games. But Tecmo will most likely be on this channel, and probably NHL 94 will be on the Twitch unless Troy streams it or someone else. Then we'll either have NBA Jam or RBI Baseball. I would say probably NBA Jam. I love RBI Baseball. Obviously, it's in the tournament, but the music can get a little bit annoying. So I don't know. That might deter some people from actually watching a full stream. January Tecmo tournaments. There's a few coming up. One of them is Tecmo Lincoln. I think that's January 12th. The Tecmo Godfather throws that tournament. The guy who runs TecmoBull.org. That's a long-running tournament. It's in Nebraska. So if you want to play in that and you're in that area, check it out. There's also a one that I've played in before is a Tundra Bowl. I'd like to go to again. We'll see how my schedule works out. But Nathan throws that tournament. It's one of the most well-run tournaments that I've been to, so definitely recommend it. I know there's some guys from Chicago going. Tecmo Bull won an entry for 3rd place for the Equalizer 2 into that tournament, so he'll be going. I know Mort's going, and I think Green Magic and DPS are. I'm going to try to get there too. We'll see what happens. And 2 tournaments popped up late on that date, January 26th. Now, I don't know necessarily how Nathan would feel about that, but they're on opposite sides of the country. So one popped up on the East Coast and one on the West Coast. West Coast DT's throwing. It's something about a woodshed or something. He comes up with some crazy cool formats. So that'll be a good tournament. The Bronx Bowl tournament on the East Coast, they're actually going to use the Equalizer format. So I'm interested to see how that turns out because they have more of a player base there. They've been throwing tournaments for a while. So their dilemma is not to get 20 players. They're saying, well, what if we get more than the 28 teams in the game? So they're trying to figure out that. I think they'll probably end up close to the 26 or 28 players anyways, so they might not have an issue with that. But I want to see what happens where they add a few more of those tier 1 teams in the game. And they're saying, I think they're trying to do some of the stuff that I talked about where they have an established community. They run a bunch of tournaments. When we see the results, it's usually, the same 8 to 10 names up on the top. So let's run a tournament format with some of these guys who are always playing that have some good skills, but let's give them a chance playing equal players to earn their team. And maybe they'll have a better shot of beating some of these guys that are on the top. So they might change up the format a little bit to fit their needs. But that tournament's also going to be Pro Bowl weekend, January 26th. Now, I think the good thing for Tundra Bowl is I know they are the second biggest or, at least second or third, want to continue to grow the tournament. I think the big thing is that Blono Tecmo, which just came out of nowhere with the longest running Tecmo tournament, and they had like over 50 players. That's an Illinois tournament. They actually moved their date to February 9th. So that's a tournament that's in the Midwest. So moving the date will allow some more players from the Midwest to play in Tundra Bowl, I believe, because there was a handful of guys who played in that last year instead. of Tundra Bowl. I was one of them, but I think that date opening up is more important than anything. So there's going to be a lot of Tecmo coming up to start this year. And I'm going to talk to Green Magic and see if he wants to do some power rankings. I think that would be fun to do. He's a pretty good writer, or actually he's a really good writer. And see if we could get something like that going on the website. I think that would be fun to do. But yeah, those are the January tournaments coming up. And then lastly, one of the questions a lot of people have is Tecmo Madison happening? And the answer is I don't know, but they have created a graphic for Tecmo 15. So, you know, keep your eye out on that. The biggest tournament might be coming back. I don't know, but we'll see. And Scotty's in the chat saying Madden 94 Sega. That one was one of the good early ones, but I don't know if it would support a tournament necessarily, but that's a game I definitely would want to play on the channel. But I've been going long enough. It sounds like I have an alarm going in the background that I have to take care of. And thanks again for supporting the channel. We got over 1,000 subscribers. That's huge. We're going to continue to play retro sports games on this channel, cover the events, and hopefully stream some more events this year, and just continue to grow the community and be part of the community. It's a lot of fun to go out there and play with some of these guys and play some of these games that we grew up in. WrestleMania 2000 says Fireball Jack. Yes, we've done some Royal Rumbles in that. It's fun to do. Once I get one of these guys over here, we could do that again. But yeah, that would be fun to see one of those N64 wrestling games in a tournament. I wonder how that would do. So that's something I'll look into. But thanks again for watching, and we hope to have a great 2019. Happy New Year, everyone, and you know, have a good time tonight. And we'll see you next year.